Welcome to Patanjali Yoga Meditation. Today we will understand Patanjali's teaching and as an overview, what is his prescription for all the kinds of people in the world. It's a very comprehensive teaching, and to make a mention of these three categories of people, I want to take you to the slide. 2 weeks ago, we discussed the wheel of the universe with six spokes. And just to recall, you know, the baseline is the person who is going through the wheel of universe. And that is what is, if you can recall this discussion, then it is not that difficult to understand these three categories of people. Let's look at it. A large majority of people are part of the wheel of universe driven by Klesa. So Klesa is again is a term slightly misunderstood in Indian context because it is used in day-to-day languages, and it has a connotation for something like pain and misery. But that is not the case here. Patanjali's meaning of Klesa is basically misconception, what we say avidya. But we are not going in that detail. In particular, that Klesa gives rise to what is called rag and dvesh that we discussed in the six spokes of the wheel. So what we had seen was rag and dvesh, which is attachment and aversion. This makes me do certain actions. The good actions are called as dharma and bad ones are called adharma. And then in consequence of law of karma, dharma brings me all kinds of joy and pleasures, whereas adharma brings pain and misery. So there are three pairs, rag and dvesh, attachment and aversion, dharma and adharma, good and bad actions, then sukh and dukh, which are joy and pain, so to say. So this is the wheel of the universe. So the story begins with rag and dvesh, because once you have final that joy and pain, and then you have liking towards joy, that leaves an impression. That impression is rag, attachment. So that's how the wheel keeps on moving. Now we are looking at rag dvesh clubbed together as a term called klesh. It's just a new term which includes rag dvesh, attachment and aversion. So a large majority of people are part of the wheel of universe that is driven by Klesa, so to say. Now within this, there are two categories, we will say, just to give it a name. The average are good, nice people like most of us. They don't do anything bad, not intentionally. So unintentionally or unknowingly something bad may happen, but these are good people, they are careful, and they are always on the righteous path, more or less. Now, there are some people who allow themselves to degrade, so they become below average because they are willing to take recourse to adharma when an opportunity arises. Like they may hurt others for personal gains, or they may cheat others. So there are some people, unfortunately, in this group of people. So that is below average. And now let's look at it. What is Patanjali? Now here, this quotation, I could have brought it last time. This is Vyas commenting on Yoga 4.11. So here, if you can read the Sanskrit, the word is dharma, adharma, sukha, dukha, raga, dvesh. Then it is Shadayam, means six spokes, Sansar Chakyam. So Sansar Chakyam means wheel of universe. These are six spokes. These are three pairs. So Ragdvesh is the propeller. Yeah, under the influence of Ragdvesh, we do dharma and adharma. That gives rise to sukh and dukh. Now that leaves an impression that is called rag and dvesh. So that is what we have already discussed. So Klesh itself is not that bad as long as you are in the average category. Most of the people in the world are. But then if you let it down and you go here, then in Patanjali's teaching there is another term. Klesh has become ashuddhi, that is called impurities. But these are some technical terms. Let's try to understand the concept. Now we are visualizing a third category of people. So some people are careful not to further the wheel of universe. They want to get out of this wheel of universe. So they don't want, they do the dharma. Of course, this third category is above average. So let's talk these average people. Now somebody will say, okay, I do dharma, but now I don't want its reward in terms of joy of life. It may sound senseless, but let's try to understand it. Because he is bold enough and wants to understand how can I come out of this wheel of universe, you know. So he says, I will do dharma, but I don't want its reward, because if rewards comes, that leaves an impression as rag, and then I am in this cycle. Okay. So let's try to understand these people. Some people are careful not to further the wheel of universe. They cultivate Vairagya. Now this is antidote of rag. That is called as detachment or renouncement. So, they want to go through the life experiences, but they don't want them to make further impressions in their mind. So no further craving, so to say. So in brief, I will say they eat to live, whereas these people, they are called as sansaic people. They are part of the world, worldly people, so to say, both average and below average, because they may even live to eat. They enjoy the food as such. And here, this person also eats food, but he just wants to provide nourishment to his, body, because he must survive to practice Patanjali's teachings, is it not? Otherwise, how will he practice? So he eats, but he doesn't, even if it is tasty food, he doesn't allow it to leave a craving for that. So, in brief, I am saying, in simple terms, this third category of people are they eat to live, they live very much in the world, but they are not living to eat. So I hope it carries the meaning that I want. So they are above average. So Patanjali characterizes their karma as, now I'm switching out to the terminology of Patanjali's, and there is a reference here, fourth chapter, seventh statement, karma ashukla akrishna yoginah trividham itayesham. So karma ashukla akrishnam yoginah trividham itayesham. Let me give its meaning. This is yogis. So yogis karma is neither white nor black. They are threefold for others. So others are, we have already discussed, average and below average. Now he's talking about yogis who is following the path of Patanjali Yoga. He is saying their actions are neither white nor black, because they don't bring any rewards. So that is a literal meaning, neither white nor black, neither good nor bad, so to say. Whereas that of others is either white, it is like dharma is either white, adharma is black, and mixed is dharma as well as adharma. Usually, most of our actions are mixed. We have good intentions, but there is always an inbuilt, some adharm is there, which goes through the law of karma. So these actions are being processed by the law of karma, and then they bring the reward in terms of joy or pain, is it not? But there are some people who say, yes, we know the law of karma. We know that dharma will bring joy and pleasures of life, but we are not interested in that. We want to do dharma just for sake of it, you know. So let me give an example here. Just imagine two households. Household number one, and both household has a mother and a child, maybe 3 or 4 year old little child. Household number one, the mother tells her child, go and clean up your room. The child goes and clean up his room as much as he can, and then he says to his mother, I have done it. Mother says, very good, you are a good child. In another household, the mother tells to the child, go and clean up your room. But he doesn't get going. Then she says, okay, you do it, I will give you a candy. Then the child goes and clean up the room and comes back and reports to his mother, I have done it. The mother gives him the candy and he is happy. Now, the child number two is doing an action which is a good action, which his mother expected, but he didn't get going in the first step. He has an eye on the candy also. But it's a good child, not a bad child. But look at the child number one. If you ask him, why did you go and clean up your room? His answer is very simple, because my mother expected me to do it. And he has such a bonding with his mother, that love and affection, whatever you call it, and that gets him going. He- So his karma is also good, but he doesn't have an eye on the reward. Of course, on some occasions, his mother will give him candy, but when he went uh, just to do the work, he wasn't expecting any reward. And actually, in all our lives, everybody does, like when we work in an office or in business, we have an eye on a monthly paycheck at the end of the month, you know. But when we come back home, we do so much for our spouse, our children, then we don't expect anything in return, is it not? So life is very mixed. But when we are aware of all these parameters, then that's what is we are trying to understand what Patanjali is trying to say. But of course, that mother child, now here it is, even in office you may do work, but just because you want to do it, not because of the paycheck, but paycheck is incidental to you. So, life can go in a particular direction, what I am trying to say. Now, in this particular case, for this third category of people, it is Patanjali's term is Ishwar Pranidhan. What he means to say is, this kind of people, just like the child number one just says, because my mother expected, I did it. Now these kind of people say, I do such things because Ishwar expects me from. That's all. So that's where the story ends. So this gives rise to three categories of people. You can say above average, average, and below average. Above average are not being driven by their clash. That is not the driving force. Clash itself is not bad, because average people are nice, good people in the world, but they don't realize it. They are being driven by the clash. And below average, where they have allowed their clash to even become impurities, and under the influence of impurities, they are even willing to harm others for their personal gain. So these are broad three categories of people, and we have Sanskrit terms for them as Devata, Manushya, and Rakshas. Let's now proceed further. So when you open the Patanjali's book, it's a very unusual book. In any other book, generally, the author builds up concept step by step from introduction, and then there are more and more complex concepts. But Patanjali's book is upside down, very unusual, but unless we understand it, we cannot really follow it. So let's see. His book is in 4 chapters, you might be aware of. There are total 195 statements, roughly divided into 50 statements in each chapter. Now, chapter 1 is called Samadhi Path, which is Samadhi as we know it now, yeah, is the last step in the Astanga Yoga. So, he is straight away going to a very high level concepts, because that chapter is for above average, the top layer people who are always engaged in this kind of Nishkam Karm. There is another term for this, Nishkam Karm, what is called Ashukla and Akrishna. Now, so just imagine as if Patanjali is speaking as a acharya, as a teacher, and all other public, they are sitting in front of him, and they come to Patanjali that please teach us something that can help us in our life. Now Patanjali starts teaching something. Then he goes for chapter 1. Then there are a number of people who think, okay, we have got our lesson. Now, these are above average people. They think that all his teachings we have understood, and now we can get going in our life. So they leave that particular hall. But many people are left over. They think as if they need further guidance. Now Patanjali goes on to sadhan path. Sadhan means. Now in chapter 2 is called sadhan path, which is addressed for the average people. So that is now called as Kriya-Yoga. So first chapter is talking about yoga. Now second chapter is talking about Kriya-Yoga, first section of chapter 2. But Kriya Yoga itself is not a complete teaching. Kriya Yoga is kind of an addendum to chapter 1 in the sense the average people need further guidance. That further guidance is Kriya Yoga, but Kriya Yoga is not complete by itself. What it does is, by means of Kriya Yoga, this average people become qualified enough, they get into the above average category, and now they can benefit from chapter 1. So Kriya Yoga is not complete by itself, it is kind of an appendix to chapter 1. Now that is chapter 2, section 1, where the Kriya Yoga benefit is it diminishes the Klesa. So when Klesa is diminished, the average person gets into the category of above average category. Now, of course, those people now also leave the hall. They think we understand the whole business, and now we can adopt it in our day-to-day life. But there are some leftover people. They still think that we don't have enough guidance. So these are the people where Klesh has degraded to Ashuddhi. So now he begins another part of the teaching that is called as Ashtang Yoga, that is covered in the second section of chapter 2, and it goes on to chapter 3. So this is a structure of the Patanjali's book, which is quite upside down. And for a normal person, he will not make a head and tail out of it. So it requires a brief understanding why Patanjali is taking such and such approach. So that was something I thought I should want to share with you this morning. And very nice. Thank you for joining.